Hello, you're listening to Storytelling Saga, the podcast that shares stories. I'm your host, Allie, and this week, you've got your Beaver survival kit, don't you? No? Oh, geez, that's not good. But that's okay, because I'm discussing the Angry Beavers, created by Mitch Schauer. The series premiered on Nickelodeon on April 19th, 1997. It ran for 4 seasons with a total of 62 episodes, and the last one aired on June 11th, 2001. So, 97 to 01, that's right at the center of that late 90s to early 2000s era of Nickelodeon. And those were my peak Nickelodeon watching years. And this is one of those shows where I loved it as a kid, and yet I love it so much more now as an adult because a lot of the humor in this show just went over my head as a kid. Specifically all of the classic mispronunciations. I just never picked up on any of them watching the show as a kid. And this, without a doubt, is another one of my top 5 favorite Nicktoons. So far, if you're interested, I've mentioned Invader Zim. I couldn't resist doing that. I've mentioned Invader Zim is one of my top 5 favorite Nicktoons. And I've also mentioned Rugrats is my all-time favorite. And I love this show specifically because it's so hilarious. But what also makes it special is the relationship between the two main characters, Norb and Dag. Their full names are Norbert Foster Beaver, voiced by Nick Bakay, and Daggett Doofus Beaver, voiced by Richard Horvitz. And this is a Nicktoon where I would love to see this rebooted. It doesn't even necessarily have to be rebooted, but it's just one that I would love to see new content for. And Patricia, actually, she interviewed Mitch Schauer a couple years ago. It's a great interview. If you haven't heard it, I highly recommend it. But Mitch Schauer, in that interview, he shared that he has an idea if the show ever got rebooted. First off, he would call it Angry Beavers Respooted. That's fantastic. A play on, they say the word spoot a lot in this show. And an idea he had for it was that Norb would be married with kids. Daggett would still be single. There'd be a scene with Daggett walking around, swinging an axe around, and then with the nieces, I guess, and them saying, like, come play with us, Daggett, as if a parody of The Shining, which that sounds dark as I'm describing it, but I know it would be hilarious with this. So that would just be great, but regardless, the episodes of this show that we do have, they're awesome. And the pilot for this show is interesting. I first watched it a couple of years ago. It's called Snowbound, and apparently it aired on September 24th, 1994. But the premise for it is that the Beavers are snowed in, they have no TV, and they're just trying to pass the time because they're bored. And I'm always fascinated by pilots because it's cool to see the changes, whether it's character designs, voice actors, all stuff like that. So in this case, Dag is still voiced by Richard Horvitz, and he looks the same more or less. It's just the coloring in the pilot's a bit lighter. But Norb may as well be a different character because he's voiced by a different voice actor named Mitchell Whitfield. He has a higher voice than Nick Bakay, and his design, he looks like Dag, which is interesting, instead of the pointy hair that he has in the show. But it's a cool pilot. I recommend it if you haven't seen it. It has more of an old cartoon feel, and there's more orchestral music in there. It's interesting. It's funny. But the first episode of the series is called Born to be Beavers. And first off, apparently they live in a town called Way Out of Town, Oregon. I didn't even know that either. But so in the first episode, they have to leave the house because this is true that beavers, when they have a second litter, the first litter leaves. And what I also like about this show is that right off the bat, the dynamic is set between these two beaver brothers. And so anytime there is that odd couple dynamic between two characters, where it's, say, smart versus dumb, or serious versus fun, neat versus messy, however you want to categorize it. Me personally, I always relate to the former. And in this case, that's Norb. And Norb is he's condescending. He teases his brother a lot because Dag is the more excitable one. He's naive. And Mitch Schauer, in fact, described that he himself relates more to Norb because Norb is more of the laid-back type. And Dag, as he described him, he's more of the leap before you look. So I guess leap without looking. He's just quick to rush in and doesn't exactly think things through. And in the second episode of the series, Up All Night, that's a fun one when they're just decide to stay up all night because they don't live at home anymore. And Norb already taking advantage of Dag's gullible nature and everything. And he says, so what you're saying is we could stay up until 8 or 9 or even 10 o'clock if we wanted to, or we could even stay up all night. Great idea, Dag, let's go. And Dag says, my idea? That's a fun episode where they just get into a whole bunch of mischief with just having their newfound freedom, living in their dam, and they do prank phone calls. They eat jalapenos watching The Crawling Spleen. That's another element with this show, that they love watching these B horror films. And what's fun about this episode is that, so what's great about this show is the fact that Mitch Schauer said that there was a lot of ad-libbing, a lot of improvising with the voice actors, and that he encouraged all of that, but he always would tell them to, if you're going to go off a tangent, just come back to the script. So they would just tease each other, and just the dynamic between the two voice actors, it helped shape the dynamic between the Beaver brothers. And of course, they're polar opposites. Like with any odd couple dynamic set of characters. But it especially works because they're brothers and they fight a lot, but they're still family. And what's interesting about that is that originally Mitch Schauer had them as best friends, but then an executive at Nickelodeon encouraged him to make them brothers so that they were really stuck with each other. So that's cute. And so in that Up All Night episode, there is one point where the Beaver brothers end up being so exhausted, they're so tired, they're overtired, and that's so relatable as a kid, when staying up late to the point where you're overtired and then you can't fall asleep. So in the episode, there's one point where they're just laughing hysterically, they can't stop laughing, and apparently that was just Richard and Nick, the voice actors, laughing, and he just said, yeah, just keep laughing, just go with it, and so they put that in the episode. Mitch Schauer shared this, by the way. It's in an episode of the Nickelodeon Animation podcast. If you haven't checked that out, there's an interview with him in that podcast, which has since ended, but that was a great podcast. Anyway, so the Up All Night episode, they're laughing, and then it ends with them realizing that the clock had been unplugged, and then so they don't know how much time has passed. And they look outside, and it's like all futuristic. Norb says, how long have we been awake? And then there was a sequel to that episode called Up All Night 2, Up All Day, The Reckoning. So then they're trying to finally go to sleep. And Dag says, nighty-night, and Norb says, sleep tight, whatever that means. And then by the end of that episode, they sleep so long, they wake up and sheep have taken over, and it's just Norb saying, how long have we been asleep? And they're all old now. It's funny. But the other unique thing about this show, besides the improvising, was the fact that when they recorded their lines, the voice actors, they weren't in separate booths. Mitch Schauer purposely, he encouraged that they be right next to each other reading their lines. And so it was more natural with them speaking over each other, that kind of stuff, because arguing, anything like that. And that's one of the things I really love about this show. The naturalistic, is that a word? The natural dialogue back and forth, that rapport between Norb and Dag. It's so real, it's so organic. And a lot of that comes from the voice actors. And of course, having the material for them to play with and make their own. So that's awesome. But of course, I mean, it's about beavers. And honestly, everything I know about beavers, I learned from this show, which is funny. And Mitch Schauer has said that throughout the course of making the show, he became a beaver expert because he learned facts about beavers and then he'd work it into storylines. One of them, an early episode, Long in the Teeth, where apparently beavers' teeth, they grow upward, and that if they don't chew, their teeth can grow into their brains. That's a real fact. And so there, in this episode, Norb doesn't chew, his teeth keep growing longer, he thinks it looks cool. And then Dag copies him, and they end up in an entanglement of their own teeth. Oof. There's also this episode, You Promised, where Norb makes a deal with Dag that if he gives him the lickety-split, this log treat that they both want, if he gives it to him now, that he'll do whatever Dag wants for a whole day, a year from now. And he thinks that's a good deal to make because Dag definitely won't remember. And Dag says, well, I do have a good, Norb says, memory. But a little beaver factoid in this episode is when Dag says, you know that second transparent eyelid we have that lets beavers see clearly when we swim underwater? To make sure I wouldn't forget, I wrote a little reminder on them. Norb promised. So then Norb has to do whatever he says for a day. There's also the episode, Another One Bites the Musk. I loved that one as a kid. Just for the colors so they have musk as a defense. Kind of like, I guess, how skunks have that. Similar. But Norb has pink musk and Dag has green musk. There's also the episode Slap Happy, where you find out that beavers, they use their tails, they slap them against the water as a distress signal. But there's just so much fun stuff in this show. And Richard Horvitz has said that some of his favorite episodes are the Muscular Beaver episodes. And there are a total of 5 of them, but Muscular Beaver, he actually first makes an appearance in the episode Gift Horse. He's just so funny. He says, "Halt, bad villain. I am Muscular Beaver with secret powers. Powers so secret even I don't know what they are." Here's another fun episode called Go Beavers when they're at a football game. And little things in this show, I just get a kick out of them. When Dag's angry at one point in this episode, and then he's muttering angrily to himself. And he's literally saying, muttering angrily. I love stuff like that. And they're always mistaken for weasels. In that episode, they say, let's show these ugly weasels what we think of them. They always have to say, we're beavers. Another episode I liked as a kid was Box Top Beavers, where, again, you see that opposite nature between Norb and Dag, where they have, this is such a 90s thing, I mean, do people still do this? Cutting the box tops off of cereal boxes to hand them in, and then you, mail them in, and then you get a prize. But you see their differing personalities, with Dag just making a mess, tearing through the boxes to get the prizes, with Norb, while Norb, he's all neatly lining his cereal boxes up, and he's cutting the box tops to get the prizes. So it's Dag with that instant gratification, and Norb with the delayed gratification, waiting to send in the box tops and get a big prize. And the grand prize apparently is a street sweeper. So Norb tries to teach Dag about the importance of patience, but then he waited so long that the offer expired. But now let me get into a couple of those mispronunciations in this. And mostly it was Norb who would do that, stretching the words, emphasizing the wrong vowels. But anyway, in the Salmon Says episode, the salmon are overflowing in their dam. And Norb says, there has to be a reasonable explanation for why they're doing this. And Dag says, I got it. Those little spooty... Oh, wait. He says, those little fishy spooty salmons have revolved into beaver-hating maniacs. And Norb says, revolved. You mean evolved, don't you? And just a quick little thing like that. I love that. But Dag just says, whatever. These water breathers are messing around on the wrong end of the food leash. It's about time to set things right. So you see the salmon swimming around. Oh yeah, they're not in the dam yet. They're just hitting the dam because they keep swimming around in the lake. So then Dag emerges wearing a salmon costume with a sail tag still on it. And I have a whole exchange here. Alright, so I don't want to go back with saying Dag said and then Norb said, so I'm just going to read it as is, and I think I have a hunch you'll be able to pick up on who is who. And I'm sure you've already seen this episode anyway, so here we go. Dag says, alright, here's the plan. Great, he's got a plan. In my special disguise, I'll be able to swim among the enemy undetected, I'm sure. Then I'll pick them off one by one. When the sacks are full of what? I'll sell the little waterheads to a seafood restaurant. Daggett, the way your brain works is frightening. Yes, my geniusness amazes me too, brother. That's great. Oh, Dag, at least he's trying. And then there's just a funny acronym. They learn that they're trying to spawn the salmon. And he says, spawn? He just makes up an acronym, Dag. He says, smashing property and whomping Norb. Oh my gosh. But then by the end of the episode, they sign a peace treaty where the salmon could go pass through the dam. And there's a part where Norb tells Dag what spawning is, and he just is saying, whisper, whisper. He's just saying whisper, whisper to him. Whispering it. That's great, too. So he just... As much as he teases Dag and uses him for his own amusement in many ways, he does stick up for him too. There's the episode Deranged Ranger when Dag becomes the forest ranger and then the animals, they want to attack him, they're angry at him. And there's just a cute part when he's all curled up, shuddering, he's scared, little Dag, and Norb saying, cut it out, he didn't mean it. It's a cute moment. But so far I've just talked about the Beaver brothers. I've yet to bring up any other characters. The Beaver brothers they carry the show, but a few other characters. One of them is Barry Bear. He's an homage to Barry White. I love the Beaver Fever episode when by the end he's singing, it's Barry White-esque. Another character, though, is Bing. He is a little tree lizard. I always thought he was a chameleon because he blended in with the tree when Dag first meets him, but he says he's a tree lizard. And he's just super clingy and even more hyperactive than Dag. And there's one part where they wreck Norb's sculpture he makes out of little toothpicks. And Norb says, and then Bing rebuilds it, like, in seconds. And Norb says, you wrecked something I've been working on for 3 months, and just because your little friend rebuilt it in 3 seconds, you think that's neat? That's not neat. It's fantabulous. It's a timberific masterpiece. These words. Great. By the end of that episode, they're just so sick of Bing. And Bing says, don't worry, I won't ever bother you guys with my stupid old friendship ever again. He walks away and Dag just says, yes. Oh gosh. And then Norb says, Bing, stop. I'm really sorry for the way we treated you. It was wrong and mean. Yeah, Norb is very sorry. And Norb pinches him. We're both sorry. I would say, though, my favorite of the secondary characters, you're going to think I'm joking, but I'm being 100% serious. It's Stump. I love Stump. I'm not even kidding. Stump is amazing. He is. I wonder if he's distant cousins or something with Plank from Ed, Edd n Eddy. Maybe, who knows? But Stump is introduced in the episode Guess Who's Stumping to Dinner? And Norb says, remember that tree we chewed down this morning? After we finished lunching on him, Stump and I got to talking. Talking? Yeah, we really hit it off. Since we ate his branches, I couldn't leave him out in the cold, so I asked him back to our place. So Dag basically gets jealous of Stump because Norb was spending all of his time with Stump. And then they argue as usual. Then there's one point where they just start thumb wrestling in the midst of their arguing. And then Stump eventually, he gets in the car and drives away. Or you just hear a car engine. Is Stump driving? Who knows? But he just does all these amazing things. He does hand puppets. There's a part where he and Norb are hand gliding. And then he and Norb are going to try time traveling to another dimension, and then Dag just ends up tripping and going into another dimension. And then by the end, Dag looks on the back of Stump's bark and he sees Dag and Norb forever. Then Dag goes to find Norb and he says, I was a stupid loghead. I know. What? Never mind. Norbert, let's never fight again. Deal? Deal. So then they're playing a trivia horror game, and Dag can't answer the question. So then Norb asks Stump. He says, how does the hero defeat the mummy in the classic horror classic Curse of the Mummy's Curse? Stump, if you can answer, you win the game. And Stump doesn't say anything. And then Norb says, that's correct! The hero did nothing! Another great Stump episode is Stump Looks for His Roots. And they're looking through old vacation slides. That's ancient too, looking through slides. But they say how Stump doesn't look like any of his relatives. And then Stump leaves and there's a note. So Dag reads it. And it says, my bestest friends, Norb has opened my eyes to the truth. I am a ... transplanter. Transplant. I still got that wrong. Transplant. Yeah, whatever. I have gone to find my roots. Have a nice day, Stump. You mean Stump. Who? Oh yeah, right, Stump. And he's like, the note is so nicely written, and the words ... are written out on the note. I love that. But, so, what's interesting too about this show, when you watch something and you haven't watched it in a long time, of course you forget certain details and everything, but then all of a sudden when you remember it, it's just such a bizarre out-of-body experience. And that happened to me specifically when I watched the episode Pond Scum. I was watching it and I was like, I don't remember this at all. But then all of a sudden, that image of the pond scum itself, that little green blob, when he possesses Norb, he's like the devil, and then Norb is doing all these bad things. And it happened specifically with the scene when Dag is eating the cereal and then Norb comes in and he has got the jacket on. And I just had a moment where I just flashed back as if I was a little kid again on our old living room couch watching this episode. But just a couple lines of dialogue that are hilarious to me in this episode. When Norb, possessed by the pond scum, he's chewing the cereal box, and Dag just says, Norb, you're eating cereal without milk. You're a stinking hoodlum. Like, he makes that connection. Okay, whatever. And then they're racing. They're in the water, going towards a waterfall, and the pond scum is egging on Dag. And he says, "What are you, buck, buck, buck?" And Dag just says, "I'm not a cow." Oh, dag it. And then the pond scum has Stump attached to him, so he asks him to let Stump go, and he does. And Dag says, "You're free, Stump!" But then Stump just goes down the waterfall, and he says, "Oops." So poor Dag, he has good intentions, but he's just not too bright. Poor Dag. He's adorable, though. Another episode I loved so much as a kid, but watching it now as an adult, it's so weird. But it's the episode Some Bummer of Love, season 1 episode. And that one, first off, it's so bizarre that they're having a concert in their pond. It's called, just this concert shows up in their pond. And it's the Awesome Beaver Pond Rock Festival. So it's basically their version of Woodstock. And the security guard keeps calling them little furry dudes, at least not weasels this time. And, I didn't even mention this yet. The humans in this show, they're so oddly proportioned, but I mean that in a fascinated way. And just they interact with the beavers every now and then. So just the animals could talk to the humans, I guess. That's something interesting about this world of Angry Beavers. But anyway, in this episode, Norb falls for Tree Flower. And she's just basically a hippie. She's got her own band called Friendly Chartreuse Bubblegum Machine. But they're just so cute together, Norb and Tree Flower. Except Tree Flower is first introduced in the episode with the long teeth because she just goes up to Norb at one point saying, "Norb, your teeth are so dangerous. Can I touch them?" And he says, "Knock yourself out, doll face," because he's suave as hell, clearly. But, so this is the episode where they first meet, though, supposedly. And it's just love at first sight for Norb. And then they sing, "I Think I Like You." But what's adorable is then Tree Flower gives him, she says, "My special springy doorstep, so you'll know the door to my heart is always open." And it's just so cute. And then she also gives him a flower, gives him a little kiss. And then when he wakes up, he's still holding the flower after the whole concert. And the whole little subplot is just Dag trying to get into the concert, and that human security guard keeps stopping him. But then after all that happens, then they're back in the dam, the concert's over and everything. And then there's just a note, and it says, "Dear Norb, it was really psychedelic sharing the groove with you and your strange brother." And I love this exchange so much. Dag just says, "She dumped you, huh?" And Norb says, "She'll always be here in spirit." But Dag just says, "She dumped you." So I just love it because he didn't even acknowledge Tree Flower at all. He didn't even say, like, "Hey, who's this spooty beaver," or whatever. Yet he just knew that that Norb was with this girl and saw the love letter, I guess. Who knows? But what I'm getting at is that he's just so in tune with Norb and just calling it like it is. Like, "Oh, she dumped you, brother. That's it." I just weirdly find that so adorable. And another episode she's in, season 2 episode called Tree of Hearts. It opens with there's birds just land on their mailbox, and the mailbox just collapses. Just a weird, random little sight gag. But there's an amazing fourth wall break in the beginning of this episode. And so wholesome and so cute. I never noticed it as a kid, but they're going through the mail. And Norb says, "Hey, Daggett, look at this. Richard Horvitz had a little baby boy." And Dag says, "Ooh, wow, that's great. Who's Richard Horvitz?" And Norb says, "Nobody." I get a kick out of fourth wall breaks. I love stuff like that. But then, so the whole point, though, is that Norb opens up another letter and that he sees Tree Flower is coming back. But now Tree Flower isn't in that hippie phase anymore. She now writes elevator music. She's gone corporate now. And also she's into Truckee, another character. He's a shrew. And Dag just inexplicably hates him. But what's so cute about this episode is Dag is basically being Norb's wingman. And Dag is so clueless with all these matters of the heart, but he's helping Norb, his brother. And so first he gets rid of Trucky by just giving him these balloons, and Trucky just goes flying up. And so here we go with a little exchange. Dag says, I got Trucky back, now you can get your girlfriend back. Right, but first I have to get her attention. Easy peasy, so easy. Just do whatever you do when you want my attention. Hey, great idea, Dag. And Dag does this little thing with his eyebrow going up and down. I found it adorable. He just goes, thank you. Like, he's so proud of himself. It's so cute. And Norb just says, I'll just ignore her. And Dag says, really? That's how you get my attention? Norb, hey, I asked you a question, Norb. Are you ignoring me? Hey, Norb, talk to me. Talk to me. He just breaks down immediately, wanting Norb's attention. So that works like a charm on Dag. Oh my gosh. So then Tree Flower's trying to talk to Norb, and he just says, aloof snort. And she just asks if he's seen Trucky. But then Trucky's not even into her. He says he just wanted help with his truck. And then there's one part where Dag makes this weird puppet thing. It's just all these objects and just saying, oh, it's Tina, Norb's new girlfriend. And then by the end of all of it, Tree Flower says, no matter what happens, Norb, I'll always be your friend. And he says, same here, Tree Flower, same here. And they hug. So then the birds are repairing their mailbox in a callback to the opening joke in the episode. And they go to sit on it and it collapses again. And Dag, meanwhile, he had bit the tire on Trucky's truck, and so he's just was getting dragged away with all the tire air in him. And then he comes back. He still has the tire in his mouth. And he just says, so she dumped you again, huh? No, she didn't. Oh, yes, she did. No, she didn't. Hey, I bit a tire for you. So again, he knows already the situation, just calling him out on it. It's adorable. And then at the end, though, Tina the puppet seems to have hit it off with Stump. That's cute. That's adorable. Another similar episode where Dag is playing wingman, it's the episode Tough Love. And in this one, Bing, he comes crying to them saying his girlfriend Wanda left him. And Dag, just being so blunt, he says, gee, too bad, Bing. Well, I have to go hide from you now, then sneak out to a wrestling match when you're not looking. Too honest. Just a little too honest. Not exactly caring about Bing's feelings. Then all of a sudden, Norb starts crying over Tree Flower, and Bing is crying over Wanda. And they're hugging Dag, and Dag just says, physical intimacy. How I loathe it so. Because there are a lot of parts in the show where Norb just says, big hug. And he hugs Dag, and Dag is never into it. He's always just trying to escape from it. Anyway, Norb tells Bing he has to find Wanda and help him reunite with Bing. So he's saying, you go out and do the legwork. And Dag says, why do I have to do the legwork? He says, fine, you console Bing. And Bing's crying. He's like, no, I'll go find Wanda. So he just walks through the forest. He ends up near a pond where there's a sign that says, don't wander here. And Dag trips and falls into it. And when he bangs into the sign, the don't falls off. So now it says, wander here. So he says, wander here. He thinks Wanda is wander, and that wander is here. Because that makes sense. Oh my gosh. And I didn't really mention that they watch such weird shows within the Angry Beavers, watch such weird things on television, besides all their weird B horror films. But in this episode, so Norb and Bing are crying hysterically. They've got tissues. The dam is full of tears. They're watching a movie called An Affair to Forget instead of An Affair to Remember. And this is stunning dialogue. Are you ready for this? The guy says, are we here to have an affair? And the girl says, I forget. Beautiful. Just simply beautiful. Anyway, Dag keeps getting injured by the animals. He thinks an alligator is Wander, and he thinks a frog, all these things. And again, he's angry, and he just says, muttering to myself, enough is enough. Because all he wants to do is go to that wrestling match to see their favorite wrestler, El Grapadora. And there's a whole episode, by the way, where it's done in Spanish. They speak in Spanish. That's a cool one. I hadn't seen it before either. That reminds me, so quick tangent with this show. I was surprised by how many episodes I hadn't seen. I remembered the first 2 seasons, specifically the first season, all the episodes. Season 3, I remembered about half of them. The other half I just hadn't even seen at all. And season 4, I had only seen a handful of them. So that's a third of the show for episodes I hadn't even seen before, which I'm surprised, honestly. I don't know why I hadn't seen them before, but there were a couple that I thought I didn't remember, but then I did. Anyway, to finish out this episode, Dag gets El Grapadora to help him, and then El Grapadora throws the gator into the dam. Thinking like, oh, that's Wander, throw her in there so she can get back together, wow, guys, back together with Bing. So then the real Wanda shows up, and Dag just grabs her and throws her into the dam, saying, work it out. Dag is so great. I don't know if you've picked up on this by now, but Dag is my favorite of the 2 Beaver brothers. And that's a complete 180 for me, because as a kid, I loved Norb. Norb was my favorite. And I loved Norb because, this is going to sound so embarrassing, but I genuinely thought Norb was cool. I really did. I was like, oh, Norb is so cool. He just is. I love his voice too, though, but that's neither here nor there. I mean, I love Richard's voice too. Okay, I'm just... but... Anyway, the reason it's not that I didn't like Dag as a kid, but as a kid, for some reason, I always thought, oh, Dag is the angry one. Even though they both... Like, Dag is more prone to anger. Norb gets angry too. He gets annoyed easily by Dag, but I always thought Dag's the angry one, so I just didn't like Dag as much as Norb. And also because I relate more to Norb, just personality-wise, but I like Dag more now because they're both hilarious, and of course I love them both because it's the relationship that makes this show what it is, and that without the other, it wouldn't be the same. But Dag's just adorable to me, and I like that he has good intentions most of the time, even though he's just clueless usually. But I just appreciate too his way of thinking and just his earnestness and all of that. And Richard Horvitz himself has said that out of all the characters he's played, Daggett is the closest to his actual personality, which that makes me happy. And that makes sense too, because there's a lot of improvising in this show, so they're putting a lot of themselves in the characters. And he has said in fan panels, when people have asked him about Angry Beavers and his favorite moments, he's mentioned he loves the Muscular Beavers episodes, as I mentioned, but he said that the moment that sums up Daggett as a character, it's so specific. I'll share it with you, of course. So it's in the episode My Bunny Guard, season 3 episode. And in that episode, there's the big bunny who's in the forest here and there. He's one of those extra recurring characters too. But in this one, he wants to protect the beavers, but it turns out he's just lonely, so he's just doing all that, pretending to be their bodyguard just so he could just hang out with them. And then he's all upset, saying nobody likes a big bunny, and Dag just says, you're right, now get out. But that's not the moment. So the moment is Dag says, all right, you big dumb rabbit, we'll be your friends. So this is the line now. The bunny says, nah, you're just saying that because I've been crying outside your door for 3 days. And Dag says, yes, so. That's the moment he says, sums up Daggett as a character. Just that, yeah, so. Like, he acknowledges the character's pain and misery, but it's just, yeah, what's your point? He just doesn't care. Just, yeah, get on with it. That's great. I love stuff like that. Such a tiny moment. Brilliant. That's awesome. What's also funny is that, so, this show, it had its full run, 62 episodes. That's more or less the standard run for a Nickelodeon show. Usually it's 65, actually. But, so when this show ended, for some reason, I always had it in my head. I literally have no clue where I got this information from. I guess somewhere online, but this was before the internet became really huge, so I don't know where I got this information from. I literally have no idea. But I remember telling my friend, oh, the Angry Beavers got canceled because they said shut up. Because there were a few points where Dag would say shut up to Norb, and then apparently they couldn't say shut up anymore. And so in the episode Alley Oops, there's a part where they're bowling. Norb says, I'm no good at this. And Dag says, I'll say. And Norb says, shush up, stupid. And so they had to dub over the original shut up and make it shush up. I don't know what the big deal is about saying shut up in cartoons. I mean, there's much worse things for kids. I guess it's not nice, whatever. But it's not a big deal. I don't know. I mean, other Nicktoons have said shut up. Whatever. So that's what I thought that's the reason this show got canceled, because they said shut up. I mean, there's also the part 2 in another episode where Dag holds up the sign and says shut up. But whatever. Yeah, guys, so that's what I thought. Where my little kid brain got that, I have no clue. So Nickelodeon was strict with that, but in a fun behind-the-scenes fact I learned from that interview from the Nickelodeon Animation podcast, Mitch Schauer said that notes they would always get from the network was to keep it kid-friendly. So then they just wrote an episode called The Legend of Kid Friendly, an episode I didn't remember at all. It's like this Western, this Humpty Dumpty looking character that turns out to be a robot, and there's just a theme song throughout it with the cows singing, he'll kill you with kindness, he'll kill you with a grin, kid friendly, don't you mess around with him. So, addressing those notes, they just wrote a character named Kid Friendly into the show. This show, though, I don't think, it wasn't really anything that kids would find offensive in it at all. Anyway, another great episode of this show. It's actually the only half-hour episode. It's the Halloween special, The Day the World Got Really Screwed Up. And I just have to give a shout out to Casey and Ashley of the Friday Night Nicktoons podcast. The podcast has since ended, but I know for a fact they love this episode. I believe it's their all-time favorite. And this episode is just so crazy. So much crazy stuff goes on. It's a shame there weren't more half-hour episodes in this series. I mean, they never did a Christmas episode. They had the Arbor Day one, which is the Beavers versions of Christmas, but it's not the same. They should have, I mean, because it's just great, though, this one, the half hour. And they just get caught up in this horror film-esque storyline when they're talking to the actors, and it's just, they're purposely poorly acted, but they're so well drawn. They look like straight out of comic books or something. And the actor, Oxnard Montalvo, he's voiced by Tom Kane, by the way, which I hadn't realized before. He's the voice of Professor Utonium on the Powerpuff Girls. There's so many funny moments in this episode, but just one of my favorites is when he says, Toluca, run for it. And she just smacks into the wall. Just some classic slapstick humor. And then toward the end, when Toluca's saying, man servant, servante, Toluca, Toluca. Just some stupidity. But the thing with this show, even with all like the crazy stuff that goes on, so there's one episode called Spooky Spoots. And first off, in the beginning of that episode, Dag is doing a crossword puzzle. And so far, he's got the word the, he's got the word angry, And now he's got to solve one more. And he's saying 7-letter word for aquatic rodents. He's saying weavers? No. Beavers? No. The Angry Daggett? No, that's 12 letters. Which, no, it's not. And then as he's doing all that, stuff is floating around him in the kitchen. There's a pencil floating that writes all the letters for him, so that's why he's guessing. He can't even think of the actual answer. And then he's just saying, gosh, Norb, things sure have been fun since we got haunted. So there's just these ghosts that haunted their dam now. And I haven't mentioned these characters yet either. There's these scientist guys that show up every once in a while. They're humans. Scientist number 1 and Pete. They first show up in the episode Stinky Toe. So they come, they want to destroy the ghosts, and then the beavers end up going inside another dimension through the VCR. It's a parody of Poltergeist, basically. But just with all the weird stuff that happens in this show, all these weird creatures they meet, or all this weird stuff they get involved with, it's still just about the Beaver brothers and just their relationship, and no matter where they are, what they're doing, just them arguing. They could be in any setting, and the best moments, to me anyway, are just them arguing back and forth, or their little banter, their bickering, anything like that. Them messing with each other, them fighting. They're just sweet dynamic, despite all the fighting, because that's natural with any siblings. The bickering, but they really would be lost without each other. Another episode with the scientists is called Moranathon Man, and scientist number 1 says, no bug spray, just this ginormous beaker of stupidity potion number 237. So he throws it into the pond, and then when the animals drink it, they turn stupid. All except for Dag, who apparently is at full dumbness capacity. Poor Dag. But then there's a great meta line where the scientist number 1 guy says, after Dag tries the water in the lake, when all the other animals, including Norb, turn stupid from it, except for Dag. So then scientist number 1 says, plot contrivance. We were just observing behind those cardboard bushes. You must be the 1 out of 10 creatures unaffected by our stupidity potion. Not only are you immune, but your body is able to generate a powerful antidote. Don't ask us to explain. It's science. Yeah, I could go with that, sure. But another episode I like is called Daggy Dearest. And it starts with Dag all just bloated after eating too much. And then he wakes up the next morning and there's a little baby mongoose in his bed with him. Well, they sleep in canoes, by the way. It's like bunk beds. Dag sleeps on the top one. And his pajamas, they're cute. He wears feet pajamas, and then he has an oven mitt on his tail, which is adorable. And Norb wears pajamas with the N on the shirt. Anyway, so Dag thinks he had a baby, and he says, a smaller than me baby thingy. I had a baby. I'm a mother, a father, and you're an uncle. Uncle Norby. You're Uncle Norby. Unless he's a she, then that makes you an aunt. Aunt Norb. First off, sound logic. But, so then Norb, he walks into the bathroom and he says, first of all, that is not a beaver baby. Second, did you ever think the pain and bloating had something to do with our trip to the all-you-can-eat stuffed jalapeno bar where you ate how many jalapenos? And then he opens the medicine cabinet, and in a subtle fourth wall joke, you just see a camera guy in the mirror, so as if they're filming a show. Clever little sight gag there. But then Dag says 2, maybe 300, nothing unusual. And Norb says for an elephant. But Dag is convinced that this little mongoose is his baby. And then he walks in later when Norb is watching TV. And he's rocking the baby. And Dag says, Gary. See, I named him after that guy who was the first president of the United States, who I called Gary because I can't remember his real name. Goodness. And then Norb is just being driven crazy by Dag thinking he's a mommy to this little mongoose baby. And then Norb is wanting to get rid of the kid at one point, but then Gary just says spoot, and Norb says, "Did you say spoot? You said spoot, you said it." So then he's just on board with being this little mongoose's dad now, I guess, uncle, whatever. But then the mongoose mom shows up. And here's another little exchange. Dag says, after the mongoose mom takes the baby and leaves, he says, "Guess he wasn't my son after all. You were right. Well, that's that. Our son, he's gone. My life is empty. Get a life. Feel my pain. He's our baby. He's a mongoose, loser." So I weirdly admire Dag's ability to just not harp on things and just get over things like that, but I guess you could also chalk it up to the fact that he's got a short attention span, maybe. The mongoose, by the way, real quick, is so adorable. I don't know what it is about this, I guess, universal law in animation where a character with giant eyes are just so adorable. Little babies, so cute. Oh, but other adorable characters who I haven't mentioned yet are Norb and Dag's little sisters. And they first come over to sleep over at the dam in the episode If You and Sisters. And what's cute is that, so their names are Stacy and Chelsea. Stacy is the one that's like Norb, and Chelsea is the one that's like Dag in appearance wise and in personality. And they're voiced by Mitch Schauer's kids, Stacy and Chelsea. So that's why that's their names. That's cute. And so, of course, they, as always, never see eye to eye. Dag thinks that they need to be super organized. They have to keep the kids on a schedule. Not a schedule, a schedule. While Norb just says, just let them have fun and be kids. And of course, that's the thing. It's always the two extremes between the two of them, where one sees something one way, the other one sees it the other way, and they always have to find a compromise, so to speak. There's also a random thing with the sisters where they just have this little fluffy doggy. That's always a bizarre thing when you got talking animals and then they have pets. That never makes any sense to me. And with that little fluffy doggy, it's just a random little, has no relevance at all, but it's very cute, the little doggy. But there's just a funny moment where, toward the end of the episode, Dag says, "I've watched hours of public television to let me know exactly how to rear children." And Norb says, "Don't say rear around the kids. That's not nice." I find that hilarious. Gosh, you don't even see them on screen. You just see the sisters, and they're just arguing as usual. I just found that line funny. Personally, I can't even tell, because everything just flows so naturally with the dialogue between Norb and Dag. I really can't tell when things are improvised and things are scripted. I guess I don't know, I just can't tell. I guess it's more so improvised when it's just the really quick back and forth between them. Especially towards the ends of episodes when they're just arguing, they're just throwing insults at each other, that kind of stuff. And of course the stretching of the words, maybe that's all. I'm sure, Mitch Schauer has said that was something that the voice actors would bring and would do that. Richard has said too that really that was more Nick doing that. He would do it once in a while. So there is certain words that Dag would do that, but mostly it was Norb. So back to the episode. When they're still arguing and Dag says, "Structure this, chart boy." Oh wait, I'm chart boy. He genuinely forgot. And then they see that their little sisters are all upset. And they say, "We're not going to fight anymore." And Dag says, "Yes, and we really," saying, "because we really like each other," Norb says. And then Dag says, "Yes, and we really, really like you too." And then Chelsea, she says, goody goody, just like Dag likes... No, I messed that up. She says, goody goody, goody... Oh boy. She says, goody goody, just like Mom likes Dag it best. And the facial expressions, it's just Dag smiling so big, and Norb just freezes, and his mouth is like puckered up, and then Dag just faints. I love that moment too, because Dag specifically almost never has a win in this show. It's either just the two of them, they just both have a loss, where they're just fighting and they are with each other, or it's more just Dag never having the upper hand, or him getting the short end of the stick. Like in that episode, Gift Horse, when Norb has the huge train set, and then Dag just gets the little pine tree air freshener thing. But then it turns out by the end that there's this whole other gift, that it's a huge monster truck. Anyway, so Dag faints, and then Stacy says, Mommy always talks about Daggy. That's why she gives Norby maple log treats every week. So then, just like that, the win is over, and then they're arguing, Dag saying, Mom gives you treats every week, and Norb saying, well, who cares? Mom likes you best. And then Dag says, where do you hide them? And Norb says, in my mouth. And then when the girls go back to the parents, then their mom is saying, I always liked Dag best when he and Norby are getting along. And the dad says, yeah, when was the last time that happened? And the mom says, Leonard, the kids are in the car. And the dad says, I know that. They know I'm kidding. So it's so weird. So she only likes Dag in that specific situation, only when they're getting along. So then when... It's just weird to think about. So it's, not exactly quite right what the girl said, but it's close enough. Only when they get along, she likes Dag best. So when they're not, she likes him worse. She likes Norb best, maybe? I don't know. Just an odd thing to think about. And I haven't really mentioned any season 4 episodes yet. That was when the show went from the traditional cell animation to the digital ink and paint animation. Because, like I said, I didn't remember many of those episodes. I hadn't seen many of those episodes, in fact. But one of them I saw for the first time recently, a few months ago. It's called Line Dancing. It's another one featuring their little sisters. And they're just waiting in line to go to this ice skating show. And all this stuff keeps happening. And there's just one part that I love. Again, with just the little back and forth with Norb and Dag. Norb says, nice going, Agile Dagile. Thank you. We could have been the first in... Don't thank me, I'm mad at you, huh? We could have been the first in line. The fact that he pauses to say, don't thank me, I'm mad at you. Things like that, you don't get in other shows. It's just so great, so organic, just the way they speak to each other. And I love Norb's little nicknames for Dag. There's so many of them throughout the show. Another season 4 episode that I like, that I hadn't seen before until recently, is called The Pasai Dam Adventure. And they're throwing an Arbor Day party. But it's more of a New Year's party instead of it being... they called Arbor Day a Beaver's Christmas, but in this case it's like a New Year's Eve party. And the premise for that episode is that a volcano hits the dam. It's a half volcano, half tornado. And so all the party guests are in this underground safety room that Norb has. He just has a bunch of random rooms throughout the dam. There is one line in one of these later episodes when Dag just says, how many of these secret rooms do you have? But anyway, in this episode, Dag and Truckee are trapped in the dam because Dag has handcuffed himself to Truckee because he thinks Truckee is stealing everything from him. And Truckee says, come on, you waffle-tailed water rat, we gotta get to shelter. And then Dag says, well, we could just swim out. And Truckee says, I ain't no dang beaver. I can't even swim. And Dag says, oh, you can't? Let's go. Because he hates Truckee, so he handcuffs himself to him so that he won't steal his stuff. Again, sound logic from Daggett. But then when they were trying to figure out how to get out of the dam, then at one point Truckee says, we're a pretty good team when we work together. And Dag just laughs. He was like, I hate you. But then a beam almost falls on them. He just says, look out, thief! And he saves Truckee and says, don't get all mushy on me. Come on. Never with the sentimentality at all, Dag. But the one of the few episodes that I remember as a kid, it's one of the last few new episodes I remember watching on Nickelodeon at the time, because I remember the little new in the corner, the orange logo instead of new. I remember they would do that once in a while with new episodes of shows in the early 2000s. So the episode I remember is Specs Appeal. It's when Norb wants to buy these super invisible X-ray specs. And then he tricks Dag into going halvesies with him, like just paying up front to get the X-ray specs. Because as always, he takes advantage of Dag's naivety. And Norb is saying, oh, we'll share them. And he's saying, I'll get them on the days that start with M, T, W, S, F, so all the letters, all the days of the week. And then Dag just says, hey, what if my birthday falls on one of those F days? And Norb says, what are you, some kind of hoggy beaver? You wouldn't need them on your birthday because you'll be getting other presents. And Dag says, I'm sorry, that was shellfish of me. Poor Dag. So that's the thing, that's something I don't like about Norb, when he's a little too manipulative of Dag. Because even in that previous episode, the Pasai Dam adventure, we see that Norb, he has all this stuff just for himself, and that he had forgotten about Dag, and then at the end, Norb saying, oh, you forgot about me? It's like, oh, because Norb goes running to him. Dag saying, oh, you forgot about me? And Norb says, oh, I couldn't have forgotten you. And he just cares about his hairdryer. So that's another reason why I do love Norb. I love Dag more in comparison, especially now with seeing episodes like that I hadn't seen before. But it's mostly harmless, though, because Dag's just too easy to mess with. But with the X-ray specs, back to this episode, when they get them in the mail, Norb says, of course, they're only invisible to the uncool. And Dag says, oh, now I can see them. So Norb takes out the toy specs, and then Dag just takes something out, you don't even see them, and those turn out to be the actual X-ray specs, that the X-ray specs themselves are invisible. Which is clever, odd joke. And Dag says, I can see the trees and the ponds and the mountains. And Norb says, doofus, you're looking out the window. And Dag says, with these... Goodness. He says, wow, with these super invisible X-ray specs, I can even see through windows. And then Norb goes into the closet and he puts on the X-ray specs and he's like, oh, hand bones he's seeing through his hands. And then Dag just says, Norb, what are you doing sitting inside the closet wearing those doofy glasses? So he can actually see through everything, that they actually work. And then Norb figures out, oh wait, these just have hand bones drawn on them. And that's relatable too as a kid, just this stuff that you think is so cool, but it's actually just like cheaply made things. With stuff like this, like, ooh, X-ray specs, or see through walls, become invisible, stuff like that seems so amazing as a kid, and it turns out, oh, it's just all a gimmick, this kind of stuff. So then with this, he finds out, Norb says, oh, they just have hand bones drawn on them. And that Dag has the actual X-ray specs. Norb saying, hey, these actually work, the invisible ones. And Dag says, well, of course they really work. What do you think I am, stupid? And Norb says, well, yeah. Oh, gosh. Then, of course, they lose the glasses. And Norb says, the fragile spectacles are in here somewhere. And Dag, with his brilliance as always, his brilliant logic, he says, I'll just use these X-ray specs to find the other ones. And then he ends up stepping on them and breaking them. A few other Season 4 episodes I want to point out really quick. These are episodes I had never seen before until this week, so it was like watching brand new episodes of Angry Beavers. So that was fun. And one of them is called 3 Dag Night. And Dag is excited because he's got this Easy clone. I guess it's a parody of the Easy Bake Oven. And so he's singing this jingle. It's not even really a song, though. He's just saying, easy clone, easy clone. Easy clone. First there's 1, then there's 2. It's just weird. And then Norb is excited because he's got this new harpsichord. He says, behold, a Louis XIV salon quality harpsichord hairdryer that dries your hair in a minuet. That was clever wordplay. And then, so the premise for this episode is that Dag clones himself. So then Norb is playing the harpsichord, and then there's just a Dag clone playing it, and then all of a sudden there's another Dag next to him, and he's like, oh, be quiet, Dags. He's like, wait a minute, Dags. And they don't talk, the clones, but they just make the little Daggett noises. They just go like, ee, those noises. And, oh my gosh, that reminds me real quick. Another tangent. So, bringing up the Nickelodeon animation podcast again, there was another episode where Richard Horvitz was interviewed, and it was with the Invader Zim cast. So it was him, he plays Zim, of course, Mulsa Fawn, who plays Gaz, and Ricky Simons, who plays Gur. And there's one point in that interview where he brings up Dag, and he does the little Daggett sounds. I can't do them, but you know, if you watch this show, so you know, but just those little Daggett noises, like those noises, I can't do them. But what I'm getting at is when he did that in the interview, because they're talking about Invader Zim, of course, in the interview, but then when he brings up Dag and he does the little sounds and he goes like, ooh, Spooty Beaver, like he did that, there's just that 5-second riff of doing Daggett. My face just lit up. It was just instantaneous joy when I first heard that interview. The interview itself is great, though. I recommend listening to that one, too, if you haven't. Just the power of nostalgia, what can I say? So then, in the episode, back to this with the clones. So the Daggett clones are just wreaking havoc, and then Norb says, they're like Dag, but dumber. I didn't think that was possible. Because Dag is just all excited, like, ooh, I got these clones now. And then the clones are just end up destroying everything and eating everything. There's one part, too, where they're on the stairs, and then they just go like, ominous E, ominous E, ominous E, like all harmonizing together. So then Norb leaves the dam, and Dag is just making more and more clones, and he's excited to have all these clones, this army of clones. I don't know what his end game was here to have all these clones. That he was just going to rule all these Dag clones. But they're just pointless. They just make a mess and are destroying everything in the dam. And then Dag is trying to control them, getting them to stop, but they're just crazy little clones. And then when the Dag clones, they wreak havoc in the forest, and then all the animals get annoyed, and they go to Norb, and then Norb at one point sees that Stump is all like skinless. He lost his bark because one of the Dag clones chewed it up. And then Norb says, Stump, what happened to you? You're right. The time for reason is over. It's time to act with the fear and ignorance of an angry mob. And then back at the dam, Dag is yelling at the clones, saying to one of them, they're playing with his teddy bear. He has a teddy bear too, which is cute. And he says, "Unhand my teddy, you beast," to the Dag clone. And then finally Norb destroys them by using his harpsichord hair dryer. He just plays the harpsichord, and using the hair dryer he melts away the Dag clones, because he says, oh, they're made of plastic, so they just all melt. And then afterward Norb says, we have to get rid of this easy clone oven. And then afterward, then Dag hears the music playing, saying, oh, Norb's getting pretty good. And then he just says, what the ... question mark? And he runs into the dam. And I saw this coming. I was like, I'm sure Norb is going to use the easy clone oven himself. And then sure enough, there are just all these Norb clones. And Norb is conducting this orchestra of himself, of the Norb clones. Another episode I hadn't seen from season 4 that I really enjoyed, it's called Dag in the Mirror. And first off, Dag's pajamas are different in this episode. I wonder why. It's just so interesting. He's got new pajamas. They're just these blue pajamas with a D stitched on them. No more little feetsy pajamas for Dag. He still has his teddy bear, though. And so in this episode, Dag gets annoyed with Norb for having all these mirrors in the bathroom, and the fact that Norb is obsessed with himself and with staring at himself in the mirror. And so here we go with another exchange. Good night, Shaggy, Baggy, Saggy, Haggy, Raggy, Dag, yay. And then when Norb's looking at himself in the mirror again, Dag says, Norbert, this has got to stop. You're so stuck on yourself. You're like really stuck on yourself. You're driving me insanitary. Short drive, block and a half at best. Very funny, ha ha, Dr. Jones. Listen, Daggy Cakes, because this is a very important point that is likely to affect the course of your life. Unless you like yourself, others won't like you. Oh yeah, well people just like me just fine, thank you very much. Good night, sir. Sorry. Norb's laughing, saying, sorry. Dag says, what's so funny? Almost no one likes you. What about Barry and Stump? And yet, nada, no way, Dag gay. Face it. Face what? I'm the only person that likes you. As your brother, I'm required to by law. People don't like me? Dag just loses it then. I'm realizing, I think, in terms of the improvising, all those little interjections for sure, just watching this for the first time, that just seemed definitely improvised, all the little things with Dag. But also, so with that whole exchange, I mean, Norb has some flawed logic there, saying that unless you like yourself, others won't like you. I guess his point is that you have to exude the way you want others to see you as. But still, Norb's just so full of himself. And I like that line, as your brother, I'm required to like you by law. Jeez. So then, the next morning, Dag is suddenly acting like a fashion model. And then Norb says, you look like you dove into your underwear drawer. And Dag says, who told you? That's a fashion secret. Now I'm pouting because that's what beautiful people like liking myself a lot do when we're upset. So then Dag turns into this... Well, first, Norb, what he does is he puts pictures up of Dag in his underwear around the forest, thinking that that'll get him, like, oh, he'll be so embarrassed that he'll get over all this. But then, of course, it backfires on him, and Dag suddenly turns into this underwear model. There's all of a sudden billboards up of him and magazine covers, which that happened really fast. It was literally, he put up the posters around the forest, and then he walks back to the dam, and suddenly there's a billboard. Just, that was instantaneous. Not even overnight, a minute later, success. But then Dag now is acting like a snooty model, and he's got a French accent. And then Norb then acts like a slob, and there's one point where Dag says, "Time to take out the recycling instead of the trash." I don't know. And then he's just, when he sees Norb all like a slob and all dirty and gross, and he's like, "I can't believe you." And then he just says, "I can't believe you'd be in such a pathetic condition in my presence." And then Dag has all these animals following him now, all the animals in the forest, just his band of followers, because he's this high-profile fashion model suddenly. And Dag is saying to him, "Well, you said it yourself that unless you like yourself, others won't like you." And then he's trying to tell Norb to get a hold of himself, like, this isn't you, this dirty, slobby beaver. And Norb says, "You can only be a garbage pile for so long before a little self-loathing creeps in. Norby, for a moment there, you appeared almost vulnerable. It's a cry for help. This calls for a Dagtervention." He holds up a mirror. "Look at yourself, Norb. See what you've become." Then Norb screams like, "Oh, how could I have let myself gotten this bad?" So Norb, I guess, was trying to prove a point to Dag, but then he was just genuinely disgusted with himself. And then Dag says to all the other animals, "Hug this big stink pile that is mon frere," and they all just leave. And Norb says, "So much for your followers." And then Dag just drops the French accent. He's just himself again. And he says, "Easy come, easy go. Anyway, them following me everywhere was getting kind of creepy. You don't have to do this, Dag. I know I don't, but how much can a guy like himself if he can't hug his own brother? Even if he is covered in filth." And he takes a deep breath and he's like, "Big hug, big hug." So that's a first. That's Dag initiating a hug. The big hug. It's Dag initiating a hug with Norb. So I found that, you guessed it, adorable. I just did. It was very cute. And then another episode I just briefly want to mention, I won't get all into it, but another one I didn't even know existed until this week. I loved it. It's called Yak in the Sack. It's a parody of The Cat in the Hat. And it was just like childhood worlds colliding. Dr. Seuss and Angry Beavers. It was great. Great parody. Oh my gosh, I got a kick out of it. I would have loved that episode as a kid. I didn't even know of its existence until now. But I really enjoyed it. And they had the rhyming in there, just a full-on parody of Dr. Seuss. Their version of the animation, it was great. And the whole thing was that the yak is trying to teach them to be safe and have fun because Norb making Dag feel bad when he beats him at at board games. They were playing this board game Rat Trap. Clearly a parody of that Mousetrap game. And then by the end, when the yak guy messing with Dag, and then he's saying, "Hey, no one can mess with my brother except me," which was cute. Then they get rid of him. And they're rapping at one point, like Run DMC. It was just a great episode. Really liked it. I also briefly want to mention an episode I do fondly remember from season 2, same time last week. And in that one, it's just Dag messing with Norb because he has a 365 ways and days to completely, totally, and fully annoy your brother calendar. And he keeps bopping Norb, and then Norb bops him into last week, and then Dag just keeps repeating the week. And it's a parody of Groundhog Day. When he gets to bop your brother till he bleats, as in bleats like a sheep. And then just the sound effects of that episode are so funny with the calendar and just each thing, like eat chips while he's sleeping, put a jalapeno in his cereal, all these bizarre things. So yeah, there's a lot of messing with each other, even though they, of course, argue. That's the whole thing with the opposing personalities. despite all of that, despite the fact that they are angry beavers, deep down you know that they love each other because they're brothers, and yet they never really overtly have these super nice moments where it's all, oh, I love you, I got your back, bro, because you don't need to have that with the show like this. You just know that they love each other. You just sense it. You know it's not anything truly mean between them. And to that point, in the episode from season 2 called Faking It, I remember this one as a kid. It's when Norb pretends being sick, and then Dag supposedly gets sick, but then it turns out he's just faking too. Then Norb is super angry with him. And then here's this whole nice exchange. Dag says, "Now, Norb, you faked first, and you got me so worried. How could you do that to me? I care for you, Norby. And for you to do the beaver gargle of ache when you're not really ache-y? Well, that's just not right. You were really worried about me? Of course. How could I not be? You're the bestest brother in the whole big wide world. You think? Yeah. Oh, Dag, I care about you too. Bestest brother in the world. Come on, big hug. Oh, Norbsy, let's not trick each other like that ever again. Really? That's incredibly sweet of you, Daggywag. That's fantastically sweet of you, brother dear. It's so unbelievably gushy, mushy, gooey, icky sweet, it's kind of making me sick. You're right, it's sickeningly sweet, and they both really get sick. So my interpretation of that now as an adult, it's the show kind of poking fun at the fact that we don't do these sweet, mushy, gushy, overtly nice moments between the Beaver brothers. It's too sickeningly sweet. You just know that they love each other because they're brothers, they're with each other through everything. And that drawing attention to it, them being actually genuinely overly nice to each other, it just isn't the tone of the show. So I thought that was clever. And that's the only part where when Norb hugs Dag, that Dag just he's smiling through it, and it's really cute, instead of him just immediately pushing him away. So that's sweet, and I really liked that exchange. But I would say this is probably my favorite Dag moment in the show, and it's not even a funny moment, so it's my favorite character moment for Dag. It's in an episode I had never seen. It's called Long Tall Daggy. It's from season 3. So Norb puts headphones on Dag, and he blasts music to wake him up. And then Dag just falls over, and you just see his eyebrow still in frame, and the eyebrow just floats away. Little sight gags like that are great. So here we go. Norb says, "Rise and shine, Diggy Daggy. It's Monday morning, and you know what that means. Time to tabulate the tallness." So then as Dag is saying this, he's looking, he picks up his eyebrow, he cleans it off as if he's like cleaning off a pair of glasses, and then he puts it back on over his eyes. I think that's that too. I'm just realizing why I thought Dag was angrier than Norb. I think it has to do with the one eyebrow. I mean, I'm thinking of Helga G. Pataki from Hey Arnold. Something about having the one eyebrow with cartoons just automatically makes them look angrier. But then there's Ed from Ed, Edd n Eddy, and he's the happiest of the three because he's just so oblivious to everything. Well, that's another interesting thing to think about. I think it's the unibrow, though. I don't know. The one eyebrow just makes you look mad. Really angry. Anyway, back to this episode. So when Dag does that with his eyebrow, he says, "Forget it. You just want to show off that you're taller than me. Go tabulate yourself and leave me alone." And then Norb is putting up a measuring day banner. A giant banner. So Norb says, "Dag, Dag, Dag, you're missing the point. Of course I'm taller. I'm the older brother. So that's just nature's wondrous natural way. Besides, measuring day is not about who's taller or shorter," which, by the way, you are. "It's about chronicling our personal growth and development together." Chronicling. so that one day we may look back on it with fun, nostalgiatic memories. So then when they do the measuring, Dag ends up being taller than Norb. And just throughout the whole episode, Norb can't take that, and Dag just keeps messing with him, saying, oh, I'm taller than you, like, just teasing him throughout all of that, saying, oh, I'm younger, yet I'm taller than you. And Norb's saying, well, I'm still smarter, and he's saying, yeah, but I'm taller. So then, this is my favorite moment. The end of the episode, Norb's saying, please, I don't want to do measuring day anymore, and Dag's saying, well, too bad. And then they go to their measuring thingy, whatever, and Dag pulls the lever, and before, just as he's doing it, he just goes down on his knees so that he's shorter than Norb. And then Norb is just so super excited, and then it just stays on Dag as Norb is getting all excited and saying, ha, I'm taller, and then Dag just says, it sure is nice to have the old Norby back. And he's just arguing with Norb, saying, yeah, big deal. Who cares about your spooty old tallerness anyway? And he's just smiling to himself. So I like that moment a lot because it's a nice selfless thing he does for Norb, and yet he still has the win. He still has the satisfaction of knowing, well, I am taller than Norb, but he doesn't have to know. And it just wouldn't have been the same if it had been switched around, if Norb had done that for Dag. It would have been cute, but it still would have been like, oh, poor Dag. He's not really taller, he just thinks he is. But with the other way around, it's a great moment for Dag specifically, because it's just him doing it for Norb's sake. And so I found that just unbelievably adorable, and I loved that moment. Another nice moment from a season 3 episode called Oh Brother, when Dag and Norb are looking through old home movies of themselves. First off, another funny exchange where Dag says, hey Norb, there's a weird blob in the middle of this movie. And Norb just pulls him to the couch. And Dag says, wow, you fixed it. And Norb says, how do you remember to breathe? But so when they watch the movie, Norb sees, oh look, there's me. And then he sees another beaver that looks just like him. So he's saying, Dag, don't you understand? You're not my brother. And Dag says, yeah, you wish. And Norb says, and maybe my wish came true. I love how I said I wasn't going to do saying Norb said and Dag said. I guess it's force of habit. I'm trying not to, but sometimes it's force of habit. So anyway, Norb says, the other beaver baby who looks like me, he's my brother, not you, you fraternal fraud. Oh, Norbert, I guess it's time to explain the birds and the beavers. See, I grew up with you, baby, and I love you. He gives him a kiss. Cute. And he says, therefore, I am your brother. He kisses him on the nose. And so he just knows right off the bat that even if they're not biological brothers, it doesn't matter because they grew up together. They're been with each other their whole lives. They're a family. So that doesn't even deter him at all. But then their doppelgangers show up. They're real brothers, supposedly. And Byron, who looks like Norb, he's just got a British accent, and he has crazy teeth. And then Randy, he's just this unevolved version of Dag. So it makes Dag look like the smart one, and Norb look like the dumb one in comparison with these two extremes. And then by the end, Norb realizes that he's right, that Dag is his brother because, like Dag said, they grew up together and they love each other. So that's just a nice attitude that Dag has, and that he may be naive and everything and a little too hyperactive and gullible, but he's smart when it comes to important things like this. So that's really sweet. And that's nice. It adds like nice dynamic to the otherwise broader sense of the smart versus dumb, that kind of stuff between the two of them. Even though Norb really isn't all that smart either. Like I said, he just likes to think he's smart and all that. He likes to think he's sophisticated. This behavior. But he's not either. Compared to Dag, I suppose. But nah, they're just both ridiculous in their own ways. So another cool thing about this show is that towards the end, when they've been doing it for a few years, Richard Horvitz has said that they would be able to record an episode start to finish within 15 minutes, mistakes and all. Whereas with other shows, for Invader Zim, for example, he said they would take up they would have 4 hours of the recording booth, and sometimes they would go over in the recording sessions. And really, just the best episodes and all these best moments, as I've been sharing, it's just between the two Beaver brothers. And so another one of those episodes is called Stare and Stare Alike, when they're just having a staring contest. Okay, so it starts with Norb. It's been so long, I can't even remember how this got started. Me neither. Say, how long has it been? Oh, nice try, Dag Day Afternoon. I'm not falling for that. Why? If you think I'd lose the staring contest that easy to a boob like you, you're nuts. Nuts? Who are you calling nuts? You can use all the big sciencey words you want, laddie, but... Oh, he's doing a Scottish accent. That's right. You can use all the big sciencey words you want, laddie, but that doesn't matter. I'm not gonna blink first, Blinky. Which word did you think was sciencey, Blinky? So they're just having a staring contest with each other. And then it turns out they had entered a contest to win a great prize on TV, and that then when they were waiting around, they just started having a staring contest. And there's one part where they just pull out sock puppets of themselves. So Norb says, "Hey, Dag." "Yes, Hank? Huh? I mean, Norb." Was that a mistake or was that intentional? Who knows? Either way, it's hilarious. But Norb ends up blinking with his transparent eyelids, using it kind of as a loophole, and then Dag says, "Oh, you can't do that." And he's saying, "The thrill of victory and the agony of my feet." And then Norb's saying, "Oh, you never specified." So then he just convinces him that the contest is still going. And then by the end, when they both finally blink, their eyes end up shutting. They can't open their eyes. So they can't see the TV to see who won the contest. Another episode I really like is called Strange Allure. And this one's from season 3. And this is another episode that I thought I hadn't seen before, but then I remembered it. This one's got a lot of great dialogue, and it's just a funny premise. So, first off, while Dag is swimming in the lake, and Norb is watching the home surgery channel, and it's just this guy writhing around while the woman's saying, "Oh, next week we're going to do this." So, like, she performs surgery on this guy. Saying, "Oh, like, you could do it yourself." It's just so ridiculous. Like, you could do it yourself, this home surgery, but the guy's writhing around in pain. It's ridiculous. But then Dag comes in crying. And Norb says, "Calm yourself, my little Dagzel in distress, and I will examine the problem." Because Dag has this fishing lure caught on his tail. So Dag says, "Give it to me straight, Doc. Will I be able to play the violin?" "I don't see why not." "That's funny, I've never been able to play before, but I'm dumb." And then Norb says, "Fortunately, you and I have advanced..." Sorry, let me try that again. "Yeah, what? Okay, go. Fortunately for you, I have advanced medical training." So that was just a mistake from the voice actor, Nick Bakay. I love that they just animated it and put it in. Didn't notice that at all, of course, as a kid, but when I watched this now, I was like, "Oh, that's great, that's awesome." And then Norb is going to perform surgery on Dag because he learned from the home surgery channel. My goodness. So then Norb leaves for a second, and then Dag is talking to the fishing lure, and then all of a sudden the lighting changes and it's starting to get all romantic in a weird way. And here's Dag's little monologue. He says, "I know this sounds kooky, but I feel as if I've known you forever." Well, maybe not forever, a couple hours, but do you feel the same way too? "You do? You do, I knew it. I can't even say you do because that's a question as if you answered, so let me try that again. You do, I knew it. This is just so wonderful, my little angel eyes. So again, that was Richard Horvitz messing up, and they just animated that in. I think that's awesome. That's so funny because it works for these characters. They could just trip over their words and just make little mistakes. And it just works. That's what I mean about this show, the unique thing about it. The natural dialogue like that. So I love stuff like that. Those were only 2 overt mistakes that I noticed anyway, but I liked that a lot. So then Dag just falls in love with this fishing lure, and the part I distinctly remembered was the fishing lure's googly eyes bobbing up and down, and then Dag's eyes getting all big. So I was like, oh yeah, I remember this episode. So this is Dag's weird inanimate object love interest. This is the only time Dag has a love interest. I mean, because Dag isn't that type of character to have an actual love interest. But then Norb's trying to get him to come to his senses, but then Dag's saying, I know I haven't been myself, but I can't help it. Of all beavers, you should understand. You were in love with Tree Flower, pathetic as it was. And Norb starts crying, and Dag says, love isn't always pretty. It isn't always what we want it to be. I know my current relationship is rather unique. The word is psychotic. And then Norb keeps crying. So he just pops up from his crying session to just say that, and he just continues crying with the comical, classic, cartoony tears spraying everywhere like a water sprinkler. But then Norb's still trying to tell him to get a hold of himself, and he says, listen to yourself, man. And Dag says, I am. And it's just crickets. Nothing going on in Dag's brain. Well, ignorance is bliss, so they say. So then later in the episode, toward the end, Norb and Dag are watching the Home Anthropology channel now. So Dag says, that's it, Norby, I am through with love. Oh yeah, sure, let me make a note of that. So he gets up from the couch, he writes big fat liar on a piece of paper, and then he just sits back down. So he just makes a note for himself, for the audience I guess, but still, just a note for himself. Oh yeah, sure, big fat liar. And then it turns out the fishing lure is still stuck to Dag's tail, and the fish are all going after the lure, and Norb says she's a bit of a floozy, Dag. Do you know what that is, a floozy? I like my lures a little on the floozy side. You should have let me operate. Now you're dragging around like luggage. Hey, I can shake her anytime I want. And he falls off the couch. And then Norb says, face it, one way or the other, the tail is gone. My way, you've got your freedom. Your way, you've got a sushi bar following you around. Your point? Wreck your social life if you had one. You want to talk about a social life, you spend most of your time with a bee. Think about that, loser. Floozy chaser. That's it. The classic bickering. Another fun episode is Partying is Such Sweet Sorrow. And it starts with them playing a video game called Doom Trotters, but Dag's joystick isn't plugged in. And then Dag says, say, I got a kooky notion. What do you say we have a little party one of these days? Excellent idea, Pin the Tail on the Daggy. After all, I am the party meister. Glad you feel that way, Norbato, because everyone will be here in about an hour. In an hour? Yeah, 57 minutes to be exact. We have to dust, we have to preen, we have to make horse dorvishes. I lost it when I first heard that. That was so hilarious to me. Hors d'oeuvres, of course, but oh my god, the mispronunciations when of course you don't expect them and they just hit you like that, and it's just so ridiculous. Horse dorvishes. Beautiful. And then later on, Dag says, why are we getting our undies in a bunch? A party is just having some friends over and goofing around. No time for your pithy assessments, Dagmund Freud. We must divide the workload. I'll check on the snacking situation and you clean up the joint. But cleaning means cleanliness, which is next to dogliness. Oh, goodness. See, I like how Norb's nicknames for Dag, they're relevant to whatever little thing he's saying. In this case, Dagmund Freud, or Pin the Tail on the Daggy. That's cute. Well, some of them are just random, too. So then Dag comes back. He says, the mini-mart was closed for a Polish holiday, so I went to the self-serve gas station next door. Pretty smart, huh? Spicy beef sticks, a candy necklace, peanut butter crackers. Ooh, yup, and they're all good and stale. Oh, dag. So, of course, Norb just tricking Dag into doing everything, and then Dag cleans the floors, and then Dag says, how about those floors, hermano, huh? He calls him hermano once in a while, which means brother in Spanish, of course. And Norb just says, shut your bark hole. I guess that's a clever, more fun way of saying shut up. That works much better anyway. And then in another exchange, okay, I'll do that one over. Okay, Dagalaga, live long day. How are we coming with those decorations? Hey, Norby, look, I can almost hit the ceiling with this staple gun thingy. Just, Dag. Zero attention span. And they're like, oh, we gotta put on music. And here's another little fourth wall break, where Dag says, let's see, what do I want to hear? Ah, Mitch Schauer, at his mighty theater organ, the perfect mix of keyboard sophistication and boyish insolence. And he picks it up, and there's just a movie and behind it that says, nice and lonely. Goodness, I don't want to know what that is. So then they're just goofing around, Dag's skating on the floor, Norb is using an ironing board like a skateboard. They're just having fun with each other. It's just a nice episode where they're not arguing, they're just having fun. And another really fun thing about this show that I noticed as a kid, but the credits would just go so fast, in the credits, that their names would just have nicknames in them. And it wasn't in the first season, it started with the second season. I just thought that was so funny and cool. I mean, I guess it was all just inside jokes. I would try to read them super fast, but it would just be quick. I would just be able to read one or two here or there. I do love the closing credits song, too. Oh, I didn't mention the theme song. I did mention the theme song when I discussed my top 10 favorite theme songs. I gave this one an honorable mention. It's just such a fun theme song because it captures I love the music itself, but also it just captures the Beavers' personalities. With Norb thinking he's so cool dancing, and then Dag tap dancing and just butting in, trying to steal the spotlight, and them slapping each other, and then when Norb jumps into the circle and Dag crashes into it. And this is honestly, I think, the only theme song that actually makes me laugh. Once in a while it makes me laugh when I hadn't been heard it in a long time. Just the part where before the whole little slapping back and forth before that, when Norb just smacks Dag with his tail, just that sound effect so prominent, it just makes me laugh. It's so ridiculous. But regarding now the closing credits theme song, with all their little nicknames for the people who worked on the show and stuff, it's just so funny. So, of course, I've got to rattle off a few. Here we go. Mitchell, what a bizarre half-hour shower. Michael R., bizarre is not the word for it, Gerard. Michael, right on cue, Sabalos. Corey, throw it to me. Ken is so unnerving. I don't know how to love Jim Lieber. Dana, that is my dad and me, Mumford. Kathy, use the force, Luker. Brad, carol me back to old Virginia. Jessica, I'm 29 and look every day of it, Dorf. Carl, the notorious cat burglar, Linton. And here's from another episode. So, I mean, some of these are puns and wordplay, and some of them are just, I guess, inside jokes, but they're so funny. Here's another set. Mitchell, I watched this episode. Why is my stomach hurting? Shower. Michael R., tell NY I've gone fishing in the Sahara, Gerard. Charlie, plinky, 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 plink, Brissette. Anne, bringing the bagel, Michaud. That's Sean Moray. Derek, wardrobe is absolutely stunning. Eric, I'll be seeing ya, Mahady. Truth, Justin, and the Nickelodeon Way, Brinsfield. Return of the Jody Reichmuth. The Green, Miles Peterson. Carl Linton, known as Handsome Arlene. So there's just a few. Oh my gosh. Oh, this show. The last episode I want to discuss is an episode that was sadly never made. It's called Bye Bye Beavers. there is an audio recording out there that you can listen to. So that's the next best thing, at least, with the voice actors, I guess, doing a table read of it, because you hear laughter here and there throughout the recording. And it just would have been a lot of fourth wall breaking, where Nor breaks it to Dag that they're cartoons. I would have eaten this up as a kid. I would have loved this episode because I love fourth wall breaking stuff. I loved it so much even as a kid. So this probably would have been my favorite episode. But they never got to make it because when the show ended, with Nickelodeon, they didn't want to have a definitive ending, even though some cartoons they do. Like Danny Phantom had a definitive final episode. And Avatar: The Last Airbender, of course, but that's different because those tell overarching stories. But with shows like this, where it's just non-serialized and it's just the point is to go into syndication, just you can watch any episode and know what's going on and everything. Oh, real quick, the other episode they would have recorded, that they did record, but as far as I know, there's no recording out there for this, but it was Rats the Musical, and they recorded the episode. Richard Horvitz has said this, and it was just a parody of Cats the Musical, and it was just an entirely musical episode. I'm sure that would have been funny too. But Bye Bye Beavers, just poking fun at being cartoons, and they would have just been slowly erasing everything from the drawings, and then just taking away the color, taking away the outlines, taking away the backgrounds. They were just stick figures, and then they're just reading a script. So it just seemed like such a fun, creative premise. So this would have been the final episode. It seems like it would have been hilarious. Definitely check out the recording if you haven't. So just such a hilarious show with crazy situations, but just despite all of that, just this relationship between Norb and Dag, it's so great. So that strong brotherly bond. And with all that being said, I guess there's nothing else to add except that was nuts. And with that, that's going to conclude this week's episode of Storytelling Saga. You can follow the podcast on Facebook and Instagram at Storytelling Saga, as well as on Twitter at Storytell Saga. You can also send me any questions, comments, or writing prompts by leaving me a message in the contact section of storytellingsaga.com or by sending me an email at storytellingsaga@gmail.com. Next week, If a Body Catch a Body Coming Through the Rye, I'll be discussing The Catcher in the Rye. Until then, thank you for listening, and remember, write what you love.